In order to play a video game, you need a game, a system, several cords, a TV, a comfy seat to sit on, and today's topic, a controller. Welcome to my top 10 poorly designed controllers, featuring those that would make you feel uninterested in gaming. Trust me, you will be just as baffled as I was. Number 10. The original Xbox controller, infamously known as the Duke controller.
Kicking off our list is proof that bigger isn't always better.
Let's just get the worst part out of the way, which is its shape. This thing is built like a scorpion. Why is it so huge? Is it necessary? No, it ain't. Not to fat shame, but it could really lose some weight and live healthier. For further inspection, I see that ABXY black and white are all oval shaped. What an odd choice. Microsoft released an updated version and it looks much better than the original. The changes go as follows. The start and back buttons are moved to the left. The black and white buttons are now located below ABXY. All face buttons are now circles. The Xbox logo is smaller in size, and the overall shape is acceptable. Just a little bonus, I also own an Xbox controller exclusively from GameStop. Despite the Duke's bad reputation, it gained a cult following, and it even made a comeback for the One and Series X/S. With all of that being said, brace yourself for the rest of the list. The rest of these controllers on this list don't really have official names, or not that I know of, so I'll give names to some of them. Number 9. These controllers for the Magnavox Odyssey. I'll call this one triple knobs. You may call this unfair because the Magnavox Odyssey was the very first home console ever made. But first, let me explain exactly why it's on this. Although it seems pretty apparent, the controller has 3 knobs, one of which is attached with another. Here's how each knob functions. The right one moves this thing vertically, the left one moves the thing horizontally. This smaller one, I'm not entirely sure how it works. I guess it just depends on what game cartridge is in the system. And there's a reset button on top. Since the knobs are on the sides of the controller, there's no way to hold it, so you have to lay it on a flat surface while using both hands on the knobs. The cord attached is very short. Also, the wire attached to the system is pretty long, meaning you'll have the system sitting close to you. So that's the Odyssey for you. Next.
Odyssey, a new dimension for your television. Now at your Magnavox dealer. He's listed in the yellow pages.
Number 8. The Atari Jaguar number pad. In 1993, the Atari Jaguar was released, and became the first system that was 64 bits, or at least it claimed to be. The graphics of its games may not be that great, but the gameplay must be decent, right? If you do not have a controller, none of this matters. So here's what the Atari Jaguar has to offer. This actually looks decent. Oh no, now I see why it should be on this list. It's damn number pad, and its shape too.
Was it really necessary to add a keypad in? This isn't the 80s anymore. This thing makes the Duke look like a micro penis.
Okay, to be fair, the extra buttons are useful in some games, like Cybermorph for example.
Where did you learn to fly?
Even then, it doesn't change the fact that the shape is questionable. Also, I have to mention that some of these games are 3-dimensional, and the controller doesn't have a joystick. There's a controller in this list that doesn't have a D-pad, despite the fact that all of the system's games are 2-dimensional. So we'll talk about why this is an issue later on. Number 7. The Intellivision and ColecoVision keypads. Double vision right there. It's unfair for me to put 2 contestants into one entry, so I would consider the Intellivision keypad being worse than the Coleco. The only major difference is this right here. Rather than adding a D-pad or a joystick, Mattel built a rotating disc into this phone-like controller. To Intellivision's credit, you can use overlays that were designed specifically for each game. If you lose them, you're out of luck, because at least some of its games might utilize all 12 buttons. The longer you play, the more you'll get used to it.
Shit the fuck!
Or you could just play the Atari 2600. That works too. This keypad is terrible, But there's another one that's even worse than the Intellivision. Not only that, but there's another controller in this list that is also made by Mattel. We'll get to that controller later, but right now, let's move on to the next keypad. Number 6. The Atari 5200 keypad. There is one big problem with this keypad. An issue that no other keypad I heard about has dealt with. The Atari 5200 keypad was one of the reasons why the system failed. They were known to malfunction. This controller also suffers from its crappy joystick. As for the 3 buttons above, there is a start, pause, and reset button.
To start a game, you literally have to jam your finger into this thing with all of your might to start a game. And I was wondering when I bought this used why the start key was all beat up. That's why. You just have to take your thumb and just shove it in there.
I assume this was before start and pause were the same button. They don't use overlays like the Intellivision does. I think I'm just about done with numbers. We should just stick with letters, D-pads and joysticks, even though the list gets worse than this.
If I were to describe how this thing feels, because most viewers probably do not have an Atari 5200 controller, it feels like a broken Atari 2600 controller attached to a telephone.
Number 5. The Ouya Controller. More like oh no. Back when the Ouya became popular and exciting, the system costed $100, and a controller costed $50. I'm not sure if we should be thankful for the Ouya being this cheap, because the console is a piece of garbage, or we shouldn't be thankful for the console not being sold for a cheaper price, because the console is a piece of garbage. The console is terrible, but in my opinion, the controller is even worse. How about we do a pop quiz? Is the home button located in between the left stick and face buttons?
Nope.
Can these face buttons get stuck underneath this faceplate?
Yep.
Are the batteries located on the back of the controller?
Nope.
Are the batteries located on front of the controller?
Yep.
So wait a minute, let's pause this pop quiz. So this is what these faceplates are for. But let me tell ya, the faceplates do not stick all that well. Let that sink in for a second. Anyway, let's continue. Is there a start or select button?
Nope.
Is the controller fun to use?
Nope.
Pop quiz over. If you scored an A+, then congrats. You now have the knowledge on why this controller is so poorly designed. Number 4. The Amiga CD32. Whatever this is, this has to be one of the most bizarre shapes of a controller that I have ever seen. It's so bizarre that it's questionable too.
Press the fire button. Okay, well, which button is that? Is it the 312 button, or the curly arrow button, or the arrow pointing at the line button, or the square button? Have they ever seen the fucking alphabet? They could have just called it ABCD.
Why is one face button bigger than the rest? Why does the D-pad look so weird? Why does the controller have to be shaped so terribly? Why would Commodore release this piece of junk to begin with? Who knows? What I do know is that I could make a better version of this thing. Give me about an hour.
1 hour later.
Although it's not a perfect fix, anything would be better than this picture on the left. You know you messed up if some average Joe like me could make significant changes on the controller, and my version would be considered better. That's exactly what this is, a poorly designed controller that deserves to be thrown into the garbage. Also, the console sucks too. Number 3. The Hyperscan D-pad-less controller. No D-pad. Yes, problem. But how exactly? Because the Hyperscan's entire library consists of 5 games. 2 of them are fighting games, 3 of them are platformers, and most importantly, all 5 of them are 2-dimensional, and that's why a D-pad is vital. Usually how the D-pad functions goes as follows. Move left, move right, duck, and something else. Instead, Mattel added a joystick. A joystick usually controls your character in a 3D environment, something like Super Mario 64, where you can move him at any angle between 1 degree and 360 degrees. Of course the joystick isn't the way to go when it comes to 2D games. This is just one issue, and there are others I haven't discussed yet. The red, blue, green and yellow buttons look like expired square gum. For some reason the bumpers are insanely large, and the trigger are awkwardly placed this way, when it should be this way, and to top it all off, its plug-in was outdated by well over a decade, despite the fact that this atrociously designed console has a USB port built in. Notice how there are 2 plugins, as if someone else would really want to play this crap with you. Mattel should stick with what they do best, making Hot Wheel cars and other toys. Number 2. The LJN Video Arts worst way to draw / color controller. Anyone who never watched the Angry Video Game Nerd would be shocked to find out that LJN, one of the worst companies in video game history, made a system, and unsurprisingly, it was awful. My biggest gripe with this controller is the fact that in order to draw, you have to press down the drawing button and move the joystick. And get this, the drawing button is on top of the stick, meaning you have to press against the stick and move it around to draw. That is incredibly stupid.
Having to press down on the joystick at the same time as you're trying to move it only adds to the frustration. And when you're pressing down and rocking the joystick around like this, it squeaks. Ah!
According to Wikipedia, the system received negative feedback, and it was well deserved. Let's take a look. Hard to work and not much fun. This is a very hard program. Even if you get good at it, the results look crummy. There's no way any kid is going to draw anything that looks half as good as the box. The slightest touch sends the cursor all over the screen, making even the simplest drawing impossible. There are 2 things that this controller has going for, but when you have something like this, and you can't even draw something half decent, none of this matters. Any drawing and coloring program is better than this. Heck, even if you're not a great drawer, you're better off drawing in real life. LJN Video Art is a big piece of crap that is best left forgotten. This dishonorable mention of the video are the Sonic and Knuckles controllers for the Xbox One. They were made to promote the latest Sonic movie, Sonic 2. How come Tails doesn't have one? Anyway, here's what they look like. I don't know about you guys, but this has to be the most absurd thing that Microsoft or Sega has ever approved. It's as if the controllers wanted to become furries. I'm not really too fond of furries, but there is one type of people that I believe is a million times worse. Weeaboos.
I have a katana collection. I've been learning Japanese on Rosetta Stone for like 5 weeks now.
Imagine if something is spilled on the fur, or if the fur becomes dirty, the fur would eventually crust up, which you'll end up having to cut a part of the fur with scissors. Hopefully this will be the last time we'll ever see furry controllers. Alright, on to number 1. The number 1 poorly designed controller is the CDI Spoon. Do I even need to say anything? No I don't. But screw it, I'll talk anyway. This spoon consists of 2 buttons, and a D-pad in between. Seriously? 2 buttons? That is really pathetic for a controller. For a console first released in December 1991. Of course the worst part is the D-pad. Why?
On God's green earth
would the D-pad be placed right in middle? Guess what else? The controller doesn't have a pause button. Who the hell even designed this crap? None of these controllers have a pause button, except for this one, which sucks too. So with all of that being said and done, it's undeniable that this CDI Spoon is one of the worst controllers ever made. You know what? All of these controllers can burn in a dumpster fire, and throw the CDI in with it too. Thanks for watching. Let me know what's the most poorly designed controller in the comments below. Like, subscribe and follow me on these social media platforms.